Hey everyone, how are you today? So today I want to show you how to knit the garter stitch. And I have a couple of examples here. I love this stitch, it's so versatile. This is a scarf I started and plan to finish with two colors, black and white. And then I have another knitted fabric I made with, I think there's about 3 or 4 different colors here. And the effect to me is just absolutely beautiful and eye-catching. So we're going to work on the garter stitch today and help you master it. Now I'm going to be using a t-shirt yarn, some yarn I had left over. It's soft and easy to work with, as well as some acrylic yarn, and I chose a brighter color so you could see the contrast more easily. The first thing I'm going to do, well, I'm going to use these knitting needles, bamboo knitting needles. They're very easy on the wrists and fingers. I love working with them. So the first thing we're going to do is create a slip stitch to cast on with. And this particular pattern works in multiples of 2 plus 1. So for this example, I'm going to cast on 11 stitches, which is multiples of 2, or 10 in this case, plus 1 makes 11. Okay, let's check this out. So we have our 11 stitches we've cast on. The first row will just consist of simple knitting, so it'll just be a knit stitch all the way through to the end. Okay, so we've completed our first row. Now we'll move on to the second row, and we're just going to turn it over and knit another row. So we're just going to knit. We're not doing the stockinette stitch, which is knit, purl, knit, purl. We're going to just, first row will be knit, the second row will be knit as well. Okay, so now we can start to see a pattern shaping up the first two rows. Now we'll move on to row 3, and this is where the real fun begins because it's going to be a little more complicated. So the first stitch will be knit. The next one we're going to slip one purlwise. So if you see the motion, we're just going to pick up the stitch and move it over to the right needle. Then we're going to do another knit stitch. Then we're going to go in, pick up a stitch, and we'll do that to the end. And the last stitch that you perform should be knit. So the third row goes pretty quickly. And just remember, your last stitch should always be the knit stitch. Okay, now we're ready for row 4. And it'll be very similar, but there's another little twist here. So the first stitch will be to knit one. Now, next thing we're going to do is pull the yarn forward. So we're going to move the yarn over your right needle. We're going to slip one purlwise, then we're going to move the yarn back and knit. And we'll alternate throughout this row. So yarn forward, slip one purlwise, yarn back, and knit one. And it's important while you're doing this to hold on to your stitches because they can very easily slip off. Knit one, yarn forward, slip one purlwise, yarn back, knit one, and then our last stitch will be a knit stitch. So that is essentially the pattern. It's made up of 4 rows, and it's a little difficult to see it with one color at first until you start doing a few more rows, and then you'll see the pattern emerge. And I think adding color is really what makes this really come out and make it really beautiful. So let's give it a try. Let's go ahead and add this yellow yarn. And once again, to add this yarn, I'm going to create a slip stitch. I'm going to pick up our free needle and cast it on to the needle. And then we'll begin the pattern of 4 rows all over again. But this time we'll be alternating yarn colors. So the first row we'll knit, and you always want to make sure that you keep the same amount of rows that you start out with. Sometimes it's easy for things to kind of get away from you, so just keep that in mind. We started with 11 stitches, we should end with 11 stitches. So this first row is just all knit. And now for row 2, I think you can see a little bit of the pattern now with the t-shirt yarn. Let's move on to row 2. We're going to knit again. Now, if you remember in the beginning when we added the yellow yarn, we created a slip stitch. We're going to have to um, combine that extra stitch with the last one so that we can maintain the integrity of our count. So we want to stay with 11 stitches. That extra stitch will add 1 to make it 12. So to keep it at 11, we're going to combine the last 2. So we'll pick up the 11th and the 12th stitch and reduce them back to 1 stitch. That way we continue on with 11 stitches so that our pattern will come out correctly. Okay, so that's 2 rows in the yellow now. And now we're going to make it exciting and pick up the t-shirt yarn, the aqua color. And we're going to move on to the 3rd row, which is knit 1, slip 1, purlwise, knit 1, slip 1, purlwise. Okay, and now for the 4th row, we'll just turn over and begin again with knit 1, then we'll pull the yarn forward, always holding on to your stitches. They'll slip off if you don't sometimes. Yarn forward, slip 1 purlwise, yarn back, knit 1, yarn forward, slip 1 purlwise, yarn back, and knit 1. And we'll continue in that pattern until we reach the end of this row. Okay, so now you can see we completed our first 4 rows in one color, and then we completed another 4 rows with 2 colors. Let's do one extra one so that you can see how it really starts to shape up with 2 colors. I'm going to alternate back to the yellow color. And you can introduce as many colors as you want. It's just more a matter of keeping up with them. I think 3 is really my limit with this pattern. It makes a beautiful pattern and it's very versatile. So I hope you'll give it a try. Leave me a comment and let me know if you do or if you have any questions. So please like, share, and subscribe. And thank you so much for stopping by.